to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a quiet place where you can soften your thoughts and drift. And tonight you'll be carried through a gentle, dreamy journey where flower petals float in the air like slow-moving stars. You are here now, exactly where you need to be. Let your body settle into the surface beneath you, as if it has been waiting all day to hold you. Feel the shape of the pillow, the weight of the blanket, the small, honest comfort of being supported. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to keep up with. Just this moment and the soft invitation to rest. If it feels good, let your eyes grow heavy, let your jaw loosen, let your shoulders melt down and away from your ears. Unclench your hands, uncurl your toes. Give your body permission to stop bracing. Now take a slow breath in through your nose, gentle and easy, as if you're sipping warm air. Hold it for a moment, just long enough to notice the quiet. Then release it with a sigh, letting the exhale lengthen like a ribbon unspooling. Again, breathe in, calm and steady, and out, softer, slower, like a wave pulling back from the shore. As you breathe, imagine the air around you turning kinder, smoother, almost velvety. Imagine a faint scent, delicate and sweet, drifting past you on a mild breeze. It is the scent of blossoms, soft petals warmed by afternoon light, though you don't have to picture it sharply. Let it be a feeling more than an image, something your mind can hold loosely, the way you might hold a feather and feel its lightness without gripping. With every exhale, let the day slide off you. With every inhale, let a quiet calm arrive, one slow breath at a time. And as your breathing finds its own gentle rhythm, the edges of your awareness can begin to soften, as if you're listening from a distance to the world you were in a moment ago, and it's already growing quiet. And somewhere, not far from your breathing, in a place made of hush and moonlight, there was a valley that welcomed sleep the way a garden welcomes dawn. In that valley, the air was never hurried. It moved in slow currents, gliding between rolling hills, slipping over a river that sang softly against smooth stones, and wandering through groves of flowering trees that seemed to bloom in every gentle shade. Pale blush, creamy white, soft gold, and a pink so light it was nearly the color of a dream. The trees had been there for a long time, their branches arched and reached full of blossoms like clustered lanterns. When the wind came, never sharp, never loud, it came with careful hands. It brushed the boughs just enough to loosen a few petals at a time, and those petals rose into the air and began to drift, turning slowly, wobbling as they fell, as if the sky itself wanted to play. Petals moved through the valley like quiet thoughts drifting past the edge of sleep. Some spun in small circles and lifted again, caught by a new, tender breath of wind. Some floated down to rest in the grass, landing without sound, becoming tiny, delicate boats in the sea of green. Some settled on the river and sailed along its surface, gathering together in little gatherings of color, shimmering in the water's reflection. On the far side of the valley, where the hills folded into one another like layered blankets, there was a path that few noticed unless they were already calm enough to see it. It didn't announce itself. It didn't demand attention. It simply existed, narrow and pale, tucked between tall grasses that bowed politely when anyone passed. One evening, as the light turned honey gold and the sky began to cool into soft blue, a traveler wandered into the valley. The traveler moved without urgency, as if time had no sharp corners. They were not running from anything. They were not chasing anything. They were simply walking, following the simplest and kindest thing, the way the air felt. In the traveler's pocket, there was nothing important, no schedules, no lists, no reminders. Only a smooth stone found beside a stream, and a folded scrap of cloth that still held a faint scent of home. The traveler's shoes were dusty from roads and fields, but their steps were gentle, careful not to crush the small wildflowers that grew near the path. They paused at the edge of the first grove, where the blossoms hung thick and bright above their head. The traveler lifted their face and breathed in. The scent of flowers and sun-warmed bark met them like a soft greeting. A few petals floated down, turning lazily, and one landed on the traveler's shoulder. It felt as light as a whisper. The traveler smiled, not wide, not loud, just a small easing of the face, the kind that happens when the heart recognizes something soothing. The wind continued its quiet work. Petals drifted, rose drifted again. The traveler watched, letting their attention become simple and slow. There was something mesmerizing in the movement, something that asked the mind to stop its spinning and follow a softer rhythm. A petal danced in front of the traveler's eyes, lifted by a small upward current. It hovered as if it had forgotten gravity. Another petal joined it, then another, and soon there was a gentle stream of petals moving along the path, as if the air itself was drawing a line of soft color through the grove. The traveler took a step, then another, following the floating trail. Not because they needed to know where it led, but because it felt pleasant to be guided by something so delicate. As they walked, the sounds of the valley shifted around them. The river's song became a distant lullaby. The grass whispered against their ankles. Somewhere, a bird offered a final note before settling into its nest for the night. The air cooled, not suddenly, but gradually, like a warm cup slowly losing its steam. The path curved between trees, and the petals drifted with it, as if they were leading the traveler deeper into a secret. Soon the grove opened into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a pond, dark and still, as if it held the sky in its palm. Around the pond, flowers grew in gentle clusters, their heads turned slightly as though listening. A ring of smooth stones bordered the water, each stone pale and rounded, each one warmed by the memory of sun. And above the pond, the petals swirled. They didn't simply fall here, they rose and turned, circling the clearing in a slow spiral like the world's quietest dance. The traveler stopped at the edge of the stones and watched, feeling something in their chest loosen even further, the way a tight knot might unwind when it realizes there is no reason to hold. As the traveler stood there, the petals began to gather closer to the water. They drifted down in soft clusters, landing on the pond's surface without a ripple, and then, as if the pond were breathing, the petals moved outward in a slow, expanding circle. The traveler knelt by the stones and rested a hand on one of them. It was cool now, but not unpleasant. The coolness felt clean, like fresh night air. They leaned forward and looked into the pond. At first, they saw only their own reflection, softened by dusk. Then the water shifted, not with wind, but with something gentler, an idea perhaps, or a quiet kind of magic. The reflection faded, and in its place, the traveler saw blossoms moving through the air. But not here, not in this clearing, somewhere else, somewhere deeper. It wasn't a sharp image, it was more like a memory the traveler had never had. A place with taller trees and a brighter glow. A place where petals fell like snow, slow and steady, and the air shimmered with tiny lights. The traveler blinked, and the pond returned to stillness, but the feeling remained. They stood, brushing their hands on their clothes, and noticed something new at the far side of the clearing. An archway made of living branches. It hadn't been there a moment ago, or perhaps it had been, and the traveler's eyes had only just become relaxed enough to notice. The arch was woven from slender limbs, covered in leaves and small blossoms, and from its top hung a few strands of pale, thread-like moss that swayed slightly. Beneath the archway, the path continued. Petals drifted through the arch and beyond, inviting without insisting. The traveler walked toward it. As they stepped under the woven branches, the air changed. It became slightly warmer, as if the place beyond held on to daylight a little longer. The scent of flowers grew fuller, richer, like a deeper breath. On the other side, the path narrowed into a corridor of tall, flowering shrubs. Their blossoms leaned toward the traveler as if curious, and petals brushed the traveler's hair and cheeks with soft taps. The traveler kept walking, and the corridor widened into another grove, this one quieter, as though it were holding its breath. Here the trees were older, their trunks were thick, their bark silvered by time. Their blossoms were fewer but larger, cupping the air like tiny bowls. The The petals that fell from them were broad and slow, drifting down in a way that made the traveler think of lantern light sinking gently toward evening. Between the trees, small lights hovered, faint, warm glows like fireflies, though there was nothing frantic about them. They moved lazily, rising and falling as if following music only they could hear. The traveler watched one of the lights drift close, then float away. It didn't feel strange or startling. It felt natural, like seeing a star appear in the early night. The path led onward, and the traveler followed, their steps soft on the ground. The soil here was springy, layered with petals that had fallen over countless evenings. Each step made no sound, as if the world preferred quiet. As they walked, the traveler noticed that the petals weren't only falling from the trees. Some seemed to appear in the air itself, materializing like gentle thoughts, as though the grove was dreaming petals into being. They drifted around the traveler's shoulders and hands, swirling in slow eddies. When the traveler lifted a hand, a few petals spun around their fingers, then floated away, as if satisfied to have been noticed. Eventually, the path ended at a low stone wall. Beyond it lay a garden. It was not the sort of garden that showed off. It was not trimmed sharply or arranged with strict lines. It was a garden that grew the way a song unfolds, naturally, beautifully, without forcing. Flowering vines climbed trellises and draped themselves in easy curves. Shrubs overflowed with blooms that seemed to glow faintly from within. A small stream ran through the middle, crossing under a little wooden bridge, and above everything petals drifted through the air in an endless, gentle shower. The traveler stepped over the low wall, through a gap that seemed made for them, and entered the garden. The air inside was softer than outside, as if the garden held a layer of calm like a shawl. The traveler's breathing deepened without effort. Their shoulders dropped another small amount, their face smoothed into quiet. Near the stream stood a stone bench, half covered in climbing flowers. The traveler walked toward it and sat down, letting their body rest in the cool curve of the stone. They watched the petals. They fell from blossoms overhead, yes, but they also rose from the stream in slow spirals, as if the water were exhaling them. They drifted from the grass when the breeze brushed it. They floated down from nowhere at all, like gentle gifts. Some petals spun like tiny dancers, turning on invisible points. Some drifted in straight lines, steady and sure. Some moved in slow, looping arcs, as if they were tracing a pattern only the garden understood. The traveler's eyes grew heavy watching them, and yet it felt good to stay awake just a little longer, as if the garden were telling a story in the language of motion. Across the stream, a small wooden door stood in a hedge. It was the sort of door that might lead to another garden, or to a hidden lane, or perhaps simply to a place meant for quiet. The traveler didn't feel the need to rush toward it. They simply noticed it the way you notice a cloud shaped like something familiar, and let it be. The lights that hovered in the grove drifted into the garden now. They gathered above the stream and along the path, brightening slightly as the sky darkened. They did not glare. They glowed gently, warm as candlelight. The traveler listened. There was the soft trickle of water, the faint rustle of petals brushing leaves, the distant hush of the valley beyond, and beneath it all, a quiet, steady sense that the garden was safe. After a while, the traveler stood and walked to the little bridge. The wood was smooth under their hand, worn by time and gentle use. They leaned on the railing and watched petals float past, landing on the stream, then traveling onward. The stream curved out of sight, and for a moment the traveler wondered where all the petals went. Did they drift to some lake beyond the hills? Did they gather in a wide pool and make a floating tapestry? Or did they dissolve into the water and become part of the garden again? The traveler didn't need an answer. The not knowing felt peaceful. A petal landed on the traveler's knuckle. They lifted it slightly, and the petal trembled, then floated away. Another petal landed on the bridge railing, then slid off and fell, slow as a sigh. The traveler crossed the bridge and wandered along a narrow path that wound between beds of flowers. The blossoms here were varied, but all were soft in their presence, as if none wanted to shout. Pale bells nodded, star-shaped flowers opened wide, rounded blooms clustered like soft clouds. As the traveler walked, the petals above them thickened into a gentle swirl, and the lights drifted closer, lining the path like quiet companions. The hedge door waited ahead. When the traveler reached it, they noticed there was no handle, only a carved indentation shaped like a petal. The traveler placed their hand there, and the wood warmed under their palm, as if recognizing a familiar touch. The door opened soundlessly. Beyond it lay a small courtyard, surrounded by flowering trees, their branches arching overhead to form a canopy. The sky above the canopy was visible in small patches, deep and velvety now, with the first stars appearing. In the center of the courtyard was a circular fountain, though it did not spray water high. Instead, water bubbled gently from the middle and spilled over the edges in a continuous, quiet flow. The sound was soothing, steady, like breathing, and swirling above the fountain were petals, hundreds of them, moving in a slow, graceful spiral upward, as if the fountain's murmuring water were lifting them into the air. The traveler stepped into the courtyard and felt a deep sense of arrival. Not the arrival of accomplishment, not the arrival of finishing a task, but the arrival of settling, like a sigh finally reaching its end. At the edge of the fountain stood a shallow bowl filled with petals. They were gathered in layers, each one delicate and slightly translucent in the starlight. The traveler reached in and lifted a handful. The petals felt cool and soft. They did not crumble. They did not wilt. They simply rested in the traveler's palm like tiny pieces of moonlit silk. The traveler lifted their hand and let the petals go. They rose into the air, not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly, as if the air itself were buoyant. The petals floated upward to join the spiral above the fountain, turning in the gentle current. The traveler watched, feeling their thoughts become lighter too, as if they were being lifted and carried away in the same kind, slow motion. Around the courtyard, benches curved along the walls, and on one of them lay a folded blanket the color of dusk. It looked soft and inviting, as if it had been placed there for anyone who might need warmth. The traveler walked to the bench and sat down, pulling the blanket over their lap. It was surprisingly warm, as though it held the memory of sunlit afternoons. They leaned back against the smooth stone wall. Above them the trees rustled softly. The fountain bubbled. The petals spun and drifted. Time in the courtyard was different. It did not pull forward. It simply expanded, making room for quiet. The traveler's eyelids grew heavy, but still they watched the petals, letting their mind follow the spiral without effort. Up, around, down, and up again. A slow, repeating pattern, like a lullaby made visible. As their breathing slowed, the courtyard seemed to respond. The lights hovering among the branches dimmed slightly, becoming softer, gentler. The petals' motion became even slower, as if the whole place were easing towards sleep. Somewhere nearby, a small chime sounded. One note, then silence. It might have been a bell hidden among leaves, touched by a petal. It might have been something else entirely. The note lingered for a moment in the traveler's chest, then faded. The traveler's head tipped slightly to one side. The blanket warmed their legs. The stone at their back was cool and steady, a comforting contrast. In their mind, thoughts came like petals too. A memory here, a small worry there, a list of things that could be done, but each thought was light, and the gentle air of the courtyard lifted them, carried them, and let them drift away before they could settle and stick. The traveler exhaled, long and slow. A petal floated down and landed on the traveler's shoulder again, just as it had at the edge of the grove. It felt like a tiny good night. The traveler didn't move to brush it away. It was too light to matter, and it felt like belonging. The fountain's sound grew softer, or perhaps the traveler's attention grew softer. The edges of the courtyard blurred slightly, not in a frightening way, but in the way a dream blurs the details of a room until only comfort remains. The petals above the fountain continued their slow dance. They rose, they turned. They drifted down again, looping endlessly, a gentle reminder that there was no need to hurry because the night had all the time in the world. And as the traveler rested there, the courtyard itself seemed to breathe in and out, in and out. The trees swayed with a barely there motion. The lights hovered still. The petals drifted as though carried on the longest, softest exhale. Far beyond the courtyard, the valley was quiet. The river kept singing, but softly now, like a lullaby heard through a door half closed. The hills held the darkness in their folds. The blossoms in the groves released petals one by one, letting them fall into the night like kind, slow snow. The traveler's eyes were nearly closed. In the space between waking and sleep, The petals seemed brighter, as if each one held a small glimmer of starlight. They moved with such gentleness that the mind could not cling to anything sharp. There was only drifting, only softness, only the steady, calming loop of motion. The traveler's breathing became deep and easy, the kind of breathing that happens when the body trusts the night. The blanket rose and fell with each breath. The fountain murmured in the background. A single light drifted near the traveler's face, then floated away, as though making sure everything was peaceful. The traveler's thoughts slowed further, becoming fewer, becoming softer. A final petal spiraled down from the canopy and landed near the traveler's hand. It rested there, perfectly still, like a tiny pale leaf. The traveler's fingers relaxed, uncurling slightly. Their shoulders melted into the stone. Their jaw loosened, their forehead smoothed. The courtyard held them in a gentle hush. The petals continued their quiet dance above the fountain, but now it didn't matter if the traveler watched them or not. The garden would keep its soft rhythm. The valley would keep its slow breathing. The night would keep its patient calm. Everything could go on without effort. Everything could be easy. The traveler drifted deeper and deeper into rest. The lights dimmed another shade, becoming little warm dots in the dark. The fountain's sound became a soft blur. The petals moved like slow, pale clouds. And in the traveler's dreaming, the petals were everywhere, floating, turning, lifting, settling, each one a gentle reminder to let go, to soften, to surrender, to sleep. Now the sentences can become shorter, softer. The garden is safe. The night is kind. The air is gentle. The petals drift. Your body rests. Breath comes in. Breath goes out. In and out. Slowly, easily. No need to think. No need to try. Just sinking. Just floating. Like a petal in the air, carried by a quiet breeze, turning once, turning again, then settling, so softly, so peacefully. And as everything fades into a warm, velvety dark, there is only calm, only rest, only sleep, waiting with open arms. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.